Talk with the Mayor. And tonight is a solemn evening. 81 years ago today, on an early Sunday morning, dawn really, and maybe before, the United States of America was attacked by the Kingdom of Japan in a surprise sneak attack in Pearl Harbor. That's long over. This is not meant in any way to cast any aspersions on Japan, which is now one of our closest friends and a country that I love, largely because of the way in which they changed, and Douglas MacArthur, who helped that, for which he is given very little credit by the corrupt media. But in any event, at that time, we were attacked, and 2,403 American servicemen and civilians were killed almost in an instant. Every loyal American alive that day can remember, and not many are alive today, but they could remember exactly where they were when that happened. My parents related to me more times than I can repeat exactly where they were when it happened. My father was listening to the beginnings of a giant football game on radio, as were many New Yorkers who will relate that as part of their history of Pearl Harbor. They had no idea what was going to happen for the next 5 years, how their brothers and sisters and friends and were going to die in foreign lands. Some would come back for a lifetime wounded, and some would come back healed. But they united the moment it happened. They didn't even need Franklin Roosevelt's memorable words the next day that drew all of America together. They were together before Franklin Roosevelt ever stood up, taking nothing away from a great moment in the history of the presidency. One of the great speeches ever made by an American president. Hard for me to repeat this. Just like that, those of us who were alive when John F. Kennedy was assassinated remember exactly where we were. I do. I related over and over again, probably to the point of boredom, to my friends. And of course, I remember exactly where I was when September 11 happened. But here's the thing about those three events that stands out for today. It didn't even take an American president, as great as Franklin Roosevelt was, as wonderful a hope for the future as John F. Kennedy was, and as heroic as George Bush 43 was. To unite, we were united the moment it happened. I had no doubt of that. Of course, I didn't live through Pearl Harbor. I was born a few years later. But all the stories I heard from my parents and from everyone else, and then what I witnessed on the aftermath of the John F. Kennedy assassination and what I lived through and almost lost my life in September 11, I never had a doubt that we would come together. Maybe a slight one on September 11, because Tom Brokaw had written a book shortly before September 11 about the greatest generation. And I'm not saying that Tom did this, he didn't, but it did raise the question, did we have it? Did we have the love of America that they had when they got together like that after September 11 and came from a country that wasn't prepared for war to the greatest war machine in human history? Not only to fight for their own freedom, but to lay down their lives for the freedom of others. When I saw the firefighters lifting the American flag on September 11, I knew immediately that we were going to come together. George Bush was magnificent in what he did, but it was the American people that came together. Now, I say this with tremendous reservation. and worry for the country I love so much. I don't know if we would do that today. I don't know if we would. I believe we would. I do. But I don't know if that's a matter of faith or optimism or my own personality. I can't tell you I'm sure, because we've gone through so many years of people deliberately attacking this country, tearing it down. Even our president telling us we're systemically racist. How can you love a country that's systemically racist? How can you say that about America? I don't at all live in an illusion that this is a perfect country. I know American history, I think, as well as anyone, except maybe the greatest scholars of American history. It's been a passion of mine since the day my mother built that into me at 3 years old. I've read, oh gosh, as much as I'm capable of. We've done terrible things in our history. We've done awful things in our history. We've done things that maybe God won't forgive. But I think he will. I'll tell you why. Because we constantly were striving to correct it. Even when you go back to slavery, it was never universally accepted in this country from the very beginning. Unlike Europe, unlike the thousands of years of slavery that preceded us, from the very beginning, we had people who were abolitionists, people who found slavery to be inconsistent with the Christian doctrine they knew, fought it, died to fight it from the very beginning. Why don't we acknowledge that? And they were white people, as well as black people, as well as brown people, as well as people who the hell knows what color they were. Slavery is inconsistent with any moral view of the world. But then again, people can get very confused. We've got people very confused now in America. We've got an America that could easily be described as a socialist communist country. We've got decisions that are made that are tyrannical. We've got decisions that are made that are despotic, that are dictatorial. We've got a president that governs largely by dictate. Dictators govern by dictate. Democratic leaders governed by persuasion and laws and bipartisan agreement, like the Civil Rights Bill that required Republican support to be passed. We've got a president who talked about uniting us and has continuously divided us. You can't unite us if you have two systems of justice in this country. You have to be a fool not to realize there are two systems of justice in this country, one for Republicans and one for Democrats. When you look at what Democrats have gotten away with, when you look at what Hunter Biden has gotten away with, when you look at what Joe Biden, the principal criminal in that conspiracy is Joe Biden, not Hunter Biden. He's the man who made all the money, and the person who tells you that is Hunter Biden. How can a country become united when you are pursuing Republicans for offenses that are paid for, like Russian collusion, or offenses that are exaggerated, and you're leaving alone major criminals who committed crimes at the highest level of government, and they're proven on record that was suppressed deliberately by the major institutions in this country? You can't unite a country like that. People instinctually rebel against that. So I pray that over the next couple of years, we find a way to overcome that. I pray that the liberals, I mostly pray that the liberals that I knew when I was a young man, the ones who believed that Nazis deserved a defense, that terrorists deserved a hearing and a defense, I wish they would come forward and say that those of us who admire and agree with what Ronald Reagan did, but what Donald Trump did, that we're entitled to a defense too. that we're entitled to the benefit of the doubt, that we're entitled to our opinions. I don't know. You keep telling us our opinions are disinformation, and our opinions turn out to be right all the time. You told us that Russian collusion was deliberate, horrible, unpatriotic disinformation. It wasn't. Russian collusion was totally false. You were lying, and we were telling the truth. I know that. So you're not going to persuade me. You might persuade someone else. You're not going to persuade me. You wrote, 51 of you, who handled intelligence in the United States for 30 years and actually answered for me the reason why our intelligence was so terrible. You wrote, in essence, that I was a Russian agent. Not just me, but lots of other people. And then the hard drive that I tried to get out to the American people, for which I've been sued, suspended from the bar, who knows what else, turned out that the hard drive was completely accurate, 100% true. It took 18 months for the New York Times to say that. And not just me, but so many others. You can't do that and bring a country together. If you want to know why we're not united, it's for actual, substantive, real reasons. If I were to tell you now that we were united, I believe I would be a traitor to my country, because I would unite with a group of people that are prosecuting people for political reasons, that are and have been suppressing free speech for several years, that engage in a process of using disinformation as a method of censorship, that try to cancel and destroy human beings. They don't just try to debate them and prove they were wrong. They try to destroy their careers, their lives, and their families. That's what I know. So it's hard for me to look in the mirror and say to myself, I'm being honest with myself, if I just concede to that. It would be for you too. So we have a big job ahead of us. We've got to unite America. We've got to make America like it was the moment Pearl Harbor happened. 2 minutes after the assassination of John Kennedy, there were no Republicans. There were no Democrats. Or even closer in time to us, September 11. And there were no Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives or socialists or MAGA people. We were all Americans. You know, we're still all Americans if we can figure that out. I don't know. I'll speak for MAGA people because I am one. Ultra. Ultra, ultra, ultra. You tell me make America great again, there's no possible way I can be more excessive in my view that America should be made great again. And there is no way that you're ever going to convince me this isn't the greatest country in the history of the world. And you're not going to convince me of it when I see all the people that want to come here. And no place else. So I don't know, my intellect is as good as yours. And my ability to perceive is as good as yours. And with regard to many of you, I've accomplished a hell of a lot more for my country than you have. So don't tell me this isn't the greatest country in the history of the world. Now, if you were to tell me this country is perfect, I'd tell you you're equally as stupid. But this is as good as human beings have ever done. We have never done better than America now. Well, maybe not now, a few years ago. Now we're slipping badly into totalitarianism, communism. I know Marx for years. I've been reading it. I was brought up in the Cold War. I worked for Ronald Reagan when the Cold War was still going on. I helped to devise the FISA court. I know communism, probably better than most of you do. I don't think this president, I will be perfectly honest with you, has the mental capacity to understand what I'm saying. I'm not sure he had it before he went senile. I know him for 35 years. And how we elected him president is a mystery to me because he's one of the dumbest men I ever met. But now he is mentally unfit to be president. And there's not a person that has the courage to say that. That frightens me. I would like to think in his cabinet, when they watch him not know where he's going, they're going to say, hey, he's got to get examined because we can't have a president with his finger near the button that's mentally unstable, that doesn't know which way he's going, that doesn't know whether he's in Colombia or in Cambodia. I'm sorry, you don't get away with that. I don't care. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You don't get away with that. If Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump had exhibited that to me, I would have asked that something be done about it under the United States Constitution, the 25th Amendment. And if you don't believe that, you don't believe it. You don't know me. But where the hell are you? Don't tell me he doesn't act that way in private the way he acts in public. The guy can't get through 2 minutes of staying on the same subject. We can't have a president like that. There's too much at stake. China is an indomitable, vicious, homicidal enemy. They've slaughtered 80 million of their own people. Life doesn't mean a damn thing to them, and they have infiltrated us so much that Apple kisses their you-know-what, and the president can't criticize them because they bought him. $31 million to his family, and we don't even raise the question. Where's our patriotism? Where's our love of America? Where's our love of our children? We don't even raise the question, and that family got $31 million from Chinese communists? I don't know what it's going to take to get us back to what we were and what we can be. I know we can. Maybe I'm not smart enough to know exactly how. I'll keep reading. I'll keep looking. I'll keep watching. I'll keep looking for people who help us get there. I'm going to give you an advertisement now that isn't paid for. Read this. Can you see it? I don't know if you know this newspaper or not. This is both a newspaper. Ted, tell me where to put it.
To the side.
Oh, here? Okay. Yep, right there. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Hold it there. Yep.
This is
Talk about it as you hold it up.
Now, this is not paid for. This is not solicited.
Yeah.
This is nothing but coming from the heart of Rudy Giuliani. I wait for this paper to come every Wednesday. Last week it came, I think, on a Tuesday. Maybe the week before. If I'm away, if I'm traveling, I asked it to be delivered where I'm traveling. I don't always get it. You can get it online every day, and I do get it online every day. But I like the
hard copy.
I like the newspaper. It reminds me of what the New York Times used to be. New York Times, now part of Pravda. For those of you who don't know, Pravda was the news agency of the Soviet Union that printed just state news. The Times is almost worse than that. I am not exaggerating. I know from the lies they've told about me. So I know it from personal experience, and they really weren't terrible. I just know how unreliable and how wicked and how horribly prejudiced they are. But in any event, I wait for this. And you find out things here that you don't find anywhere else, like former Chinese Communist Party chief led China to a horrific era aided by the West. This is an obituary of Xi Jinping, who Joe Biden, I don't know, I think he kissed him a few times. This guy was an evil murderer. They reveal it. New York Times doesn't. Or any of the newspapers you read or any of the stations you watch on television. Even Fox and others don't do very much about it. They do a little. They do a little better. I've got to be fair. They do a little better, but not much. You got to read this to find out. How about, did you read about 100 seniors skip meals due to inflation burden? That's the Biden inflation. Because poor people are suffering under the party that's supposed to help poor people, Democrats. They were doing much better under Trump, but they won't tell you that. Now, we should know that so that we can make informed decisions about which party is better for us. And poor people probably don't have the same education, the same ability to get all the newspapers, all the access to news and whatever. Not all poor people, but some. So they're maybe more easily manipulated, maybe not. A lot of rich people are pretty screwed up in this country right now, maybe even more. Now, how about this? You're never going to see this in an establishment newspaper, which seems to me to be very much in favor of mutilation of young people. Transgender surgeries are no cure for distressed youth, doctor says. Of course not. Now, this one you just need common sense for. You don't need to be a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, or a liberal. Taking off sexual organs of males and females before they're 18 years old is horrific. And anybody who tries to defend that on the basis that that's some kind of discrimination against anyone is missing the bigger picture. It's called mutilation of people who don't have an ability to make a decision about where their life is going to go. That's why from time immemorial, we've said that parents make decisions for children. That's even in the UN Charter of Human Rights, that parents make decisions for children under 18 years old. But they don't tell you that. They don't tell you they're violating the sacred UN International Human Rights Charter, do they? The American Bar Association is scrapping LSAT requirements for admissions process. Basically, now you could be a moron and get into law school, as long as you fit whatever criteria the American Bar Association will set, which is, if my profession isn't destroyed already, which I think it is, this destroys it completely. I mean, my profession is run by a bunch of politically correct, silly people. This is moronic. The American Bar Association scrapping LSAT requirement in admissions. What are they going to substitute for? What kind of suit you wear? Or if you don't wear a suit, or if you walk around in shorts? I mean, I have no idea. Or if you're binary, whatever that is this binary or non-binary? I don't know. What am I? I mean, I'm a male. I do know that I can get past two things. I'm a male, and I can mostly identify females. Beyond that, and I also know that the test of the bathroom you go in is the organs you possess. Because I'm not going to let you, if you're a male, dress up as a female and go into a bathroom with my granddaughter. No way you're going to do that. I'm Italian American. You're not going to get away with it, okay? And I come from Brooklyn. So you better not go into the bathroom with my daughter if you're a male. I don't give a damn what the liberals say. Ain't going to do it. Got it? Okay. Ted?
Thanks for joining
Any reaction to that? Particularly the last part. We got any Italian Americans out there? Of course, we're the only ones they haven't taken down the statue of Columbus in Columbus Circle. They've taken down a lot of Columbus statues. But I'd be really disappointed in the New York Italian Americans if they let them take down the Columbus statue in Columbus Circle. I mean, I don't know what Columbus did. You don't know what Columbus did. They don't know what Columbus did. It's too long ago. We do know that he's the reason the damn thing got recorded. That's a pretty good achievement. If he was an evil man, he did evil, he did horrible. I don't know that. You don't know that. And you got a lot of heroes, by the way, that I know are pretty damn evil. Want me to stop bringing them out? How about getting rid of the name of the Democrat Party? That's a lot worse than Columbus. Democrat Party was born, lived, and survived on slavery and then racism until the 1960s. Biden's best friend was a damn head of the Ku Klux Klan. So don't give me this stuff about Columbus. I know about the Democrat Party a lot more contemporaneously than Columbus. So cut it out. You want to mess with my heroes? I'm going to mess with your heroes.
Thanks for joining us.
Change the name of the Democrat Party. No party in America should be named after an institution that defended and promoted slavery for, what was it, 100 years? Right?
That's right, Mayor. Thanks for joining us. America's
I got a little worked up.
America's Mayor.
That's good.
Rudy Giuliani, and the fastest hour on the internet.
You're right. Now let's go.
Just a half hour to go. Ask away. Questions, please. Also, give us your name and where you're tuning in from. We'll read some of those off in a little bit. Mayor, of course, today being 81 years ago today, Pearl Harbor. Of course, some questions I saw in here. People were comparing. Comparing may not be the right word, right? But when people think of Pearl Harbor, they think of days like September 11th.
I think that's a fair comparison. I think that
when on that day, when on September 11th did you first think Pearl Harbor? Was it the days after? Maybe talk about that.
When did I compare it to Pearl Harbor?
No, not compare, but when did at any point did you think of Pearl Harbor?
Oh, sure. Well, certainly. I mean, let me back up a little. I certainly compared it to Pearl Harbor. Oh, probably way before this, but I mean, one of the. I mean, there are a number of memories from September 11 that I live with every day. I mean, the worst one is the man jumping from the 101st floor. If I don't see that every day, it's pretty close to every day. But the other one, which is the much more optimistic one, and I kind of use it to wipe that one out, is the firefighters with putting up the flag like Iwo Jima. Now, I lived for several years behind the Iwo Jima Memorial when I was in the Ford administration. You didn't realize I'm that old. I was in the Ford administration as the low down in the Justice Department. I was one of the two chiefs of staff to the Deputy Attorney General Harold Tyler. That was in the Gerald Ford administration, and I lived in Arlington, Virginia, and I lived right behind the Marine Corps Memorial with the flag. So I watched it. I saw it every morning out my window, and I got to tell you, it made me want to learn about Iwo Jima, and then I read the book by Tom Brokaw, The Greatest Generation, probably about 4 or 5 months. I read it kind of late because it was a bestseller for quite a bit longer than I first read it, but I was pretty busy as the mayor. I read it maybe 4 or 5 months before September 11th, before the summer of 2001. And it always raised in my mind, and I raised it with my friends when we have conversations about this. I wonder if I think Tom kind of raised that in the book. I wonder if we have what they had, what my parents described to me, what their friends described to me, what other people who, Judge Tyler, who I work for, who was my boss in the Justice Department, helped to liberate a concentration camp in Germany. I wonder if we have that. And a little bit like now, I was mostly sure we did, but I wasn't sure. And then when I saw those firefighters put up that flag, I knew we did because I knew what they were standing on. And they knew what they were standing on. They were standing on fires of 2,000 and 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit that could easily have come up out of that debris and killed them. But I didn't give a damn. They put up the flag. Didn't even concern them. They're going to show America, damn it, we're going to fight back. These terrorists are not going to get the best of us. And then when George Bush came to New York a couple of days later and said, you're going to hear from us, I'm sorry, he became a great president. You can say anything else you want about him. I'm very disappointed in him for a lot of different reasons. We could discuss that some other time. But I announced afterwards, this man will be a great president. And the way he reacted, I know in my heart and soul, and I said it to my friends, Al Gore never would have done that. Wouldn't have had the guts to do it. Because he was well, never mind. Wouldn't have had the guts to do it because Clinton had the opportunity to do it, and all he did was bomb empty fields. So there's been a vast difference between the two political parties in defending America up until now. Well, even now, I mean, look what Biden did in giving up the Bagram Air Base. But I kind of attribute his selling out to China to his corruption. I don't think the whole party is sold. The whole Democrat Party is sold out to China. There's no question the Biden family has. I mean, just think to yourself for a minute. We mentioned John Kennedy, right? And I admire John Kennedy a great deal. Imagine if he had gotten 31 million, or a brother Robert had gotten $31 million from the Soviet Union. There's no doubt, no matter how wonderful, no matter how much the press loved him, he'd have been in jail. They'd have put him in jail. Or Ronald Reagan, or Richard Nixon, or Lyndon Johnson, or Dwight Eisenhower, general that he was. We wouldn't have tolerated him getting $31 million from our enemy. China is our enemy. What do I have to do? Slap you in the face to wake you up to figure it out? They killed 80 million of their own people. They killed a lot of our people with COVID CCP virus. They killed a lot of our people with that, and a lot of people in Europe. If you can't figure that out, you're probably sold out to them, just like Apple has, in basically cutting those terrorists off from a way of protecting themselves using their iPhones. Disgraceful. Well, what else, Ted?
We're getting a lot of great questions.
Ted did a good job the other night, right?
It's quite the person to try to fill in for, right? America's mayor. So, Mayor, we were getting a lot of questions. A comment I did want to read. Kit Kat says.
Tic Tac. Oh boy.
Kit Kat is her name of.
I thought you meant TikTok, the Chinese communist app that takes all your information. That AOC will not tell us whether she still is using. And if she is using it, maybe we should take away any security clearance she has.
Wow.
Now, you got the guts to do that, Joe?
Kit Kat just wanted to point out that she remembered you attending all the funerals for weeks and weeks, it seemed like. She had been to 4 funerals, and you were at all 4. So I wanted to point that.
Yeah. I have tremendous guilt for I wasn't at all of them. I think I pretty much was at all the funerals and wakes, because if I couldn't go to the funeral, I tried to go to the wake the night before. I certainly didn't cover all of them, and it was one of the first things that was on my mind after, because I was obsessive about being there for my firefighters and my police officers way before September 11th. You have no idea what it does to me to see what the Democrats have done to the police with the Black Lives Matter. And they support an organization, and their biggest donor is Soros. Soros is the biggest donor to the Democratic Party. He's the biggest donor to the organization Black Lives Matter, that says, fry them like bacon. Every protest. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. What are they telling people? Kill police officers like my cousin. Like all the men and women I lost when I was mayor, trying to protect mostly minorities. And we did. We saved more lives than any group in the history of this country. And you want to kill them? Please wake up. Come on. Coca-Cola, stop giving money to them. I don't know even why to get rid of this. What the hell are you giving money to Black Lives Matter for? They want to kill police officers. They are run by avowed, admitted communists. You don't even have to guess. They tell you they're communists. Their number 2 program in their platform is to get rid of your family. Generic families. Comes from Karl Marx. What are we, uneducated? The people, we are. What are we, illiterate? We don't read? The people who train them are police cop killers given pardons by Democrat presidents.
Mayor, we got a question I think you may want to address. Snowman, he comments, and that's the name, Snowman. Snowman says, all of you political figures on both sides wine and dine together behind the scenes.
Me?
So, Mayor, do you? Yeah, he is.
I haven't wined and dined with anybody except we had a nice dinner tonight at Chaz Palminteri's restaurant in Manhattan after I finished my hearing with the DC bar that wants to punish me for representing my client. I can't talk about it. I won't say anything about it. But you and I, because it was over and we could relax for the first time in about 4 nights. You know, I was up all night preparing.
Yes.
We had a nice dinner at Chaz Palminteri's restaurant. But I don't wine and dine. I mean, I would like to actually wine and dine with Democrats, but they hate me now. But not the people in New York. Now, how many people in New York? 1 out of 20, maybe? How many people come up to me in New York, including lots of Democrats, and tell me what a good job, I don't hate to say it, I did as mayor?
I'm getting very spoiled. My experience in New York, right? Because when I go out to eat with the mayor, virtually everywhere we go,
we did about 20 pictures tonight, right?
We do at least 20
okay.
Pictures.
Now tonight we didn't get any.
Nice.
Well, every once in a while we get one that says you're a traitor. You're
quickly look away and scurry off.
Oh, but we get it. We got to be honest. We get some of them.
Yeah.
I don't know about very few. I think about 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20. I think so.
Sure. Yeah. But for the most part, overwhelmingly, whether it's the Upper East Side and these people that are clearly liberals, or obviously folks all across town, universally, people respect the mayor for what he did. It's not about Republican or Democrat.
I don't see it
being a good leader.
I don't see them that way.
Yes. And they don't see you that way.
Well, they're
people that were here in New York.
Well, certain ones are making me see them that way by their prejudice and their unfairness and their persecuting people who just because they have a different political view or they happen to think that Trump was a great, go stuff it up, whatever. I think Trump was a great president. I don't care if you don't like his personality. He did more for my country than any president since Ronald Reagan. And I work for Ronald Reagan, and he's my hero. You can go look at the books all over here about Ronald Reagan. I mean, and I know for a fact that minorities and poor people did much better under Trump than this deranged human being who's in the White House. How we put him there, I can't figure out. And tell me he's not senile. What the hell are we doing pretending that our president is normal? What kind of idiots are we? 1 in 7 seniors skip meals due to inflation. That's a lot of seniors. How many of them were veterans? How many veterans are homeless? I know because, look, I was his friend. I am his friend. I know that Donald Trump worried about those things. Honestly, maybe 10 years ago, Joe Biden would have worried about those things. Even though he was kind of dumb, I always thought he had a heart. I didn't know he was a big crook. I didn't know that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been friends with him. I don't like crooks. I put too many in jail. And he was a bigger crook than most that I put in jail. But Joe Biden's incapable of having that feeling now. You got to be living in some kind of dream world not to see it. Just watch him. Watch him say to the prime, why should I feel terrible when I laugh about this. And I have to confess to you, there are sometimes, there's a program on Australian television. I don't know if it's every night or frequent because I see it a lot. And they do a whole thing on whatever dumb, stupid things Biden did that day. He does a lot more than you ever see, or even I ever see. But they got it all. And every once in a while, I look at it. Sometimes I'm shocked. And sometimes I laugh, and I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. It's not funny for him. It's not funny for his family. But most of all, it's not funny for us. But maybe I'm preaching to the converted. I don't know, because you listen to me.
Comment below. Let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. and we will read off some names and where you're tuning in from. The mayor loves reading these, and we love reading off some of those, and we'll get back to some questions. And be sure to visit rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com. And Mayor, what does the CS stand for?
Well, CS stands for common sense. And right now we have a podcast on, and go to any of them that you want. There are about 300. We have a podcast on that describes the criminality of the Biden crime family with regard to China. I want to point out to you that most of that was discovered by me 2 years ago, before the hard drive, and when I was being attacked by every left-wing or middle-of-the-road Democrat that existed, and every left-wing institution, newspapers, television stations, cable stations, bar associations, all of them. I was some kind of fool or some kind of a person that was trying to elect Trump, and that's why I was revealing Biden's criminality. First of all, I revealed it before I even thought he was running for president. I revealed it in January, well, really February, because I first got it in November of 2018. So I revealed it for the first time in February of 2019. Yeah, that's right, 2019. Honest, this was about 4 months before he ran for president. For the life of me, I didn't think he'd run for president. He looked to me like he was finished. I know him for 30 years. When I would watch him on TV, I'd say, they're not going to let this guy run. It's ridiculous. The guy it's like putting a prize fighter in the ring who's 75 years old.
So we have some hellos here. Snowman, who asked a question. We've kept him around, so he's in DC.
Snowman?
He appreciated that's the name of his chat name. Summer says hello.
I like that snowman thing. Why? Because I want snow for Christmas for my granddaughter is now 1 year old. She was 1 year old last week. This will be her first Christmas, and I really wanted to have snow, but I don't know. I was the mayor, but I don't know how to work that out.
Yita says hello from Chirac, which I believe is another name for Chicago. She's the one using the term.
No, Chicago, when you just put New York aside for a minute, because you can't, New York is just too much, I just love New York. Look, I lived only here, basically, except for Washington. It's all I know. But I love Chicago. It probably is my favorite American city after New York, because it reminds me of New York. I feel so sorry for Chicago. I wish I had been mayor of Chicago. And I really got along very well with Mayor Daley. He was a good friend. Mayor Daley, I admire for many things, including on September 11, he and Governor Bush of Florida sent me more help than anybody else. Meaning, Mayor Daley sent me Chicago police officers that helped to patrol the streets of New York, so that my police office could concentrate on terrorism, because he understood that we would have to divert a lot of our police department. That's a very intelligent mayor and a very decent man. So did Governor Bush. And about 3 or 4 weeks into it, within a few days of each other, both of them called me, and they asked me if they could send representatives to our emergency management center that had gotten a lot of attention on television, whatever, and with George Pataki and I running it. And I will tell you, George Pataki is entitled to a tremendous amount of credit for his heroism and what he did on September 11th. And probably sometimes isn't given the proper credit, because I'm giving too much. But I love George, even though I disagree with him on some politics as a Republican. But I love him and what he did for New York. So they asked if they could send people here. And I said, of course. I mean, you sent me so much help, you can do anything you want. You can have the city. And they did. And they then went ahead and established emergency management centers similar to ours in their city. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not trying to, I did the same thing with Mayor Reardon of Los Angeles, who got elected before me, and he established a whole program for highways And I borrowed it from him. And I borrowed welfare reform from Governor Thompson of Wisconsin. It wasn't my idea. I stole it from him or borrowed it from him. Well, that's a great leader. Not a lot of other people did that. So I am more than aware of the fact, and I have a tremendous regard for the present governor. But one of the reasons the emergency response in Florida is as good as it is it started with Governor Bush in 2002, 2001, 2002, and it built with other governors, and Governor DeSantis has taken it to even a further level, much like Mayor Bloomberg did with many of the things that I did. Mayor Bloomberg has a totally different view of the world than I do. He probably doesn't even like me anymore because of my support for Trump. But I admire what he did as mayor. I don't know. I'm capable of that. Aren't you? I mean, I don't get it with these people. I don't get it with the New York Times. They got to hate me because I support Trump. They got to suspend me from the bar. They've got to. I don't get it. I mean, I don't make all the right decisions, but I honestly make them from a level of honesty and integrity. And I'm wrong just as much as anybody else. But oh well.
Thanks for joining us, Mom.
Maybe that's because of what I went through the last couple of days.
Mama Babs says
I'm not allowed to describe it. I will after it's over. I mean, it honestly worries me for the future of my country and really for the future of my profession, lawyer. When I see this, the American Bar Association is scrapping LSAT requirements for admissions process. I figure that my legal degree is worth nothing. I mean, what does it say? What does it say? I mean, what it should say to people is that I was highly educated and met very high standards in order to take their legal affairs into my hands and handle it for them because they don't know the law, just like a doctor. You don't know medicine. I don't know medicine. We have to rely on the fact that these people got a great education. You got to rely on the fact that a lawyer got a great education and is a very smart person. Because you're putting your life in his hands sometimes. God forbid you're falsely accused of murder. You're putting your life in my hands. That's the way I felt with President Trump. I knew President Trump was innocent. I knew he didn't collude with Russians. You didn't know that for 3 years because none of those liberals told you that. Instead, they attacked me for representing him. But I knew it. I knew it from being with him for 5 months beforehand. And as a lawyer, even if I didn't know it, I would have defended him because he's entitled to a defense. But they don't think so. They think he's not entitled to a defense, that I was some kind of a horrible person for defending him. And also, they could raid my home. They can raid my law office, as well as all the other people that represented him. Maybe I'm the most prominent or the best known one, so I can speak up. But there are a lot of others who suffered worse than I have, who aren't known, who've been made bankrupt and destroyed. This is a tyranny that's going on. And what they're doing to people who supported him or supported his ideas is disgraceful. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You have to tolerate their views, like I tolerate your views. I don't want to destroy you. I really don't. I don't want to take away your profession. I don't want to hurt your family. I don't want to put you in jail. I want to convince you you're wrong. I think I can out-debate you. Maybe I'm too arrogant, but that's what I want to debate with you. That's what I was brought up to believe America is about. That is what I was brought up to believe the First Amendment is about. And that's what I was brought up to believe liberals believed in. Maybe even more than conservatives. It took me a while to become a conservative, partially because of that. Sometime we'll describe that.
Thanks for joining us. Let's say hello to some people. Sal from New York, Mama Babs in Ohio, Linda in Virginia, Sherry Ann in Iowa, Bear in South Carolina.
Oh, that's a lot of. We're
Matt from Boston. Oklahoma, Summer in Oklahoma, Lori in Laguna.
You mean people in Boston are listening to me? Boston Red Sox fans?
Ward in West Virginia. He's one of our moderators. Bay Area, California. Katie says hello.
So I got to tell you, Boston is my number 2 city after Chicago. It really is after Chicago. Because don't get offended. This has nothing to do with the Red Sox. You have no idea that I actually have a secret admiration for the Red Sox.
So you call
sometime I'm going to explain why, but it has to do with the fact that you won more in the last 15, 20 years than we have. So I have a secret admiration for you. You copied us and then exceeded us. That is very admirable. But in any event, the only reason you're the number 2 city is a little small.
Number 3 city.
Number 3 after Chicago.
Well, New York's number 1.
Well, New York is not even number 1. New York is like in a category. It's the capital of the world.
So it's not even in this.
It's the capital of the world, Ted. You know who said that? Pope John Paul.
Well, it doesn't get much better than,
so I announced.
That's a real pope.
I announced when I was running that New York was the capital of the world. When I became mayor, I announced it just to irritate other mayors. I used to get lots of. The mayors get along with each other, or they used to. I don't know if they do anymore. But they used to call me and they'd say to me, you can't call it the capital of the world. It's not. Washington's the capital. I said, well, we have the UN and all this other stuff. But then I got a great gift from the Pope came to New York. And at his mass at Yankee Stadium, he announced, please don't. I'm going to say it straight. I usually imitate his accent, but I'm not going to do it. He said, New York City is the capital of the world in his sermon.
Oh, you're sitting there.
Okay, what I did was I got little pictures of the Pope. I put the quote on I paid for this myself. I didn't use city funds. Put it on the back. New York City is the capital of the world. Pope John Paul, the date. I sent it to all those mayors and I said, go argue with the Pope. Leave me alone. It's the capital of the world. That's, as far as I'm concerned, as a Catholic, that's infallible. Well, really not, actually. I shouldn't do that because it's only on faith and morals that the Pope is infallible. And the current Pope is driving me nuts.
Oh, my goodness.
He's driving me nuts.
Don't get the mayor started.
Stop it. Stop it, Pope. Stop it with this communism crap.
So Boston, so New York's its own category, then Chicago. So you're saying Boston's the second city, the number 2 city. Why is that? Why?
It's a beautiful city. I mean, come on. First of all, maybe it's number 2. It has more history than Chicago, but it isn't as big.
It's not as big.
It may even have more history than New York. When you think about it, it's about equal. But New York doesn't. New York has become so many things. People don't understand the history of New York or what New York did in the Revolution. Now, a few things have restored that. Hamilton, which you'd be surprised, I think is a great play, and written by the son of a commissioner of mine when I was mayor. Hamilton helped to kind of reestablish a bit the significance of New York in America's revolutionary history. The wonderful, unbelievable, which I've watched once and now we're going through again for a second time, series Turn, which I recommend for anyone. In fact, we've been out to Sea Talk at New York and film some of the places where the battles took place. I don't think people realize how significant New York was to our war for independence. I'm not saying Boston wasn't. It was possibly more, but New York gets underrated for that because we don't promote it. Now, this will probably get people because we have so many other, we got so many other things to promote. I guess I don't. It's horrible when you're such a ridiculously prejudiced New Yorker. But this is a city you can't beat this city. I mean, come on, Ted, you're from Michigan. Is there anything like this, New York?
It really isn't. But when I look at pictures of Detroit, Michigan from back in the day, when I hear stories,
well, Detroit's a great city too. I love Detroit.
The history, the automotive industry.
Here's another free advertisement.
Manufacturing. Oh,
see that watch? That's a Shinola watch.
Hold that up for a minute. We'll zoom in.
This was made in Detroit. No, they started this about over a decade ago.
Zoom in on that. Hold that up.
This was made in order to reestablish downtown Detroit
Keep that up
by the Shinola Electric Company. It is a wonderful. This is one of their original watches too. I've got a lot. I got 10. These are very, very moderately. Well, I don't know what you regard as moderately priced, but I fortunately made a lot of money at one point. But a $500 or $1,000 watch like this is, to me, remarkable. I think this was $500, this watch, when I bought it. It's the first one I bought. I bought it in Dallas, Texas. And it was made in Detroit, Michigan. So I get teased a lot about the colors. You see those colors? Those are Detroit colors, right? Look at them. Come on.
Blue.
And orange. That's
Detroit
a
Tigers.
yeah.
Detroit Tigers. That's right.
New York Mets too.
Ah.
So when I wear this, my Yankee fans say, "What did you become a Met fan?"
Ah, that makes sense.
You can't win.
How did you learn about Shinola watches?
Right in front of my house, from which we are broadcasting now, there was a big ad, like we have in New York. They're beautiful, beautiful ad. And there was a picture of this in the ad.
And you liked it?
No, I looked at it and I said, that must be like a $5,000 watch or something. I couldn't afford that. I can't buy that. Even though I was ridiculously making a lot of money then, but didn't grow up that way. I can't afford that. So then I went to a wedding in Dallas, Texas, and I was walking through a department store and there's a big Shinola display. And I remembered it from the ad. This is why ads work. And I walked over and I said, can I see those watches? I figured I can't afford that. And I looked at this, and this was one of their premier watches, one of their original watches. And they showed me this thing. And I said, boy, that's beautiful. How much is that? And I figured you can say 5,000, 10,000, some ridiculous Rolex amount, right? He said, oh, that's $450 or $550. It's all a game of expectations, right? Maybe if he had said $500 and I was expecting 100, I'd said, keep it. He said $500 and I was expecting 5,000. I bought it right on the spot. And since then, I have a couple, because I've been very fortunate. I've got a couple of really, really expensive watches. This is just as good. And I'm not asking for anything from Shinola for telling you that, because I'm just
Detroit. That's a Detroit company. So Detroit.
But one of the reasons they did downtown Detroit is to help reestablish it. They put their main store in downtown Detroit. I guess the Shinola company, which was a leather company originated in Detroit 100 years ago.
Wow.
So they help establish and rebuild Detroit. And that's another reason I bought it. I'm very, very interested in cities and have supported a lot of different cities in America and worldwide that are trying to rebuild, because I think cities are very important to our civilization. And we can explain that at another point.
So just a couple minutes left. Mayor, what closing thoughts? Maybe you want to touch upon Georgia. I'm sure.
Okay. So, I always have to be straight and honest. I'm very disappointed about Georgia. First of all, Herschel Walker is a good friend of mine. I feel terrible about what they did to him, the way they defamed him, the way they attacked him. I don't know the allegations against him, but I know that they came up at a political time, and I know the man. This is a very, very good man and a very smart man. And the other guy is a left-wing lunatic who supported Black Lives Matter, who supported defunding the police, who supports socialism and communism and lied about it and fooled you in Georgia. I think he fooled you unless you really are that left-wing. If you are, we're in a lot of trouble. I really thought that ultimately the reality of the two people and the jeopardy this country is in becoming a communist, socialist, whatever you want to call it, country, we're there, actually. We got to get taken back from it. Would have gotten the people of Georgia to vote for Herschel Walker. It didn't, and I am still processing it, Ted. I think it is significant. I think it's very dangerous. I don't know exactly what it means. It could mean that more of our country has gone further left than I would understand. It could also mean that our country is more able to be brainwashed than I thought, or fooled, which is probably, in the words of Hamilton and Madison, even more dangerous. But it's a very, very troubling outcome, because Warnock is as left as you're going to get. This is not a moderate Democrat. This isn't a cinema or a mansion. This is Bernie Sanders to the left. Bernie Sanders, anti-police, anti-law enforcement, anti-American economy. What the hell Georgia is doing voting for him, I can't figure out.
Well, Mayor, that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Come back tomorrow. Who knows what we'll be talking about tomorrow? The world now changes so fast. Stay with us because we're going to tell you things. And I have to admit, I get a lot of them here and elsewhere. I pick them up. I read things that other people don't read. And I look for things that other people don't look for. I do it for your benefit because I'm very worried that our country is at the level now of censorship, not terribly different than China.
So join us again tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Bring a friend, and we'll.
God bless you and God bless America. And tonight, say a prayer for all the people and all the families that suffered as a result of Pearl Harbor. Let's use that one tonight as a special intention. And also all the families whose children are buried in Europe and in Asia, who gave their lives to save Europe and Asia. No country ever did that. Colin Powell said the best things about that I ever heard. I'll talk to you about that tomorrow night. God bless you and God bless.